It started with a smile on her face, the kind I hadn't seen since my dad's funeral. She said she'd met someone online, a widower, kind, charming, and lonely. But by the time I realized what was really happening, it was too late. My mother wasn't in love. She was being hunted. Grief changes people. Some become quiet, some angry, some start baking or walking just to fill the empty hours. I never imagined grief would make my mother fall in love with a stranger. After my father died, the house felt hollow. The living room still smelled faintly of his aftershave. His shoes were lined neatly by the door. His jacket hung on the same hook as always, as if he might come home any minute. Mom refused to move anything. She said it made her feel like he was still around. I didn't argue. Everyone grieves differently, and I thought time would soften it. I tried to visit every weekend. We'd have tea, go over bills, sometimes just sit in silence while the television murmured in the background. She looked smaller every time, as if loneliness had quietly stolen inches from her height. Then one Sunday evening, I noticed something new. She kept glancing at her phone, smiling. Not the polite someone texted me smile, but the kind that makes your eyes brighten for real. I asked what was so funny, and she said, "Oh, nothing, just a group I joined. Some widows talking about cooking." Her tone was casual, but her cheeks were pink. Later that week, she mentioned a name, David. She said it like she'd been waiting to say it aloud. He was an architect working in Dubai, she explained, helping design some big hotel project. He'd lost his wife 2 years ago and joined the same widows support group on Facebook. They started messaging after she commented on one of his posts about grief. He understands what it's like, she told me. He doesn't tell me to move on. He just listens. I remember nodding, genuinely happy that someone was listening to her. For months she'd been fading, and now, finally, there was color in her voice. She began dressing differently too. She'd fix her hair before our video calls, wear light lipstick, even spritz perfume before heading out for groceries. At first I thought it was wonderful. Healing looked good on her. But the more she talked about him, the more uneasy I felt. David seemed perfect. Too perfect. He was kind, successful, funny, and spiritual. He texted her, "Good morning, beautiful," before breakfast, and "Sweet dreams, my love," at night. Mom read those messages out loud like poetry. She said things like, "He makes me feel seen again," and I smiled because I didn't want to ruin it. But something about the rhythm of his words sounded polished, practiced. A month later, I visited her in our old brick house in suburban Texas, the one with the wind chime Dad hung the year they retired. The kitchen smelled like coffee and vanilla candles. Mom was humming while baking muffins, her phone propped up on the counter. Every few minutes it pinged. She'd wipe her hands, smile, type something, and giggle softly. When she caught me looking, she said, "Don't tease me, Em. I know what you're thinking." "I wasn't," I lied. "He just makes you happy, huh?" She nodded, eyes shining. "He's special. You'd like him." That night over dinner, she talked more about him. His childhood, his travels, the hotel project he was leading. She knew every detail. But when I asked how they communicated, video calls maybe, she said, "The connection where he's working is bad, but he sends voice notes sometimes." I felt a small warning bell in my head, the kind you ignore because it seems rude to doubt someone's joy. When she said his name, she softened. When she read his words, she seemed younger. I told myself it couldn't hurt. What harm could a little online companionship do? The next weekend, I dropped by again. She had new framed photos on the shelf, her and Dad on their wedding day, and beside them, a printed photo of a man in a crisp white shirt standing by blueprints. I guessed it was David. She said she'd ordered it online so she could see his face when she missed him. That night, while we watched old family videos, she whispered, "You know, David says my smile reminds him of his late wife's. Isn't that sweet?" I wanted to be happy for her, I really did, but something about that sentence made my stomach twist. Over the next few weeks, her vocabulary started changing. She began using phrases I'd never heard from her mouth. "My sunshine," "My heart beats for you," "sending kisses across the ocean." She slipped them into conversation without noticing. Once she accidentally called me sweetheart in the same tone she used for him. I laughed it off, but inside I worried. Then one evening she phoned me, voice trembling with excitement. "He might be coming home soon," she said. "He's finishing the project earlier than expected." I congratulated her, even though I doubted it. A few days later, her tone shifted. "David's bank messed something up," she explained quickly. "His payment is stuck in transit, and he can't access his funds for another week. He feels terrible about it." She tried to make it sound small, almost funny. "He just needs a little help until it clears. He says he'll pay me right back." The way she said it, lightly, almost rehearsed, made my throat dry. I asked, "How much is a little help?" She hesitated. "$1,200. But it's fine, I had some savings." My heart dropped. I told her to wait, at least talk to me before sending anything. She smiled faintly. "Emily, you worry too much? Not everyone's out to scam people." That sentence cut deeper than she knew, because that was exactly what I was starting to fear. Later that night, I lay in bed replaying her words, her new laughter, the glow on her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. I remembered the printed photo on her shelf, the ones that looked too perfect, like magazine pictures. Part of me wanted to drive back and stop her. Another part whispered, "She's an adult. Let her be happy." But deep down, I already knew what was happening. I just didn't want to believe it. That night, she wired him $1,200. That was the moment I lost my mother. Not to death, but to a dream. After that transfer, something in our rhythm changed. Mom started talking about we instead of I. "We watched a movie last night," she'd say, meaning she and David. Or, "We're thinking of traveling when he comes back." Her loneliness had turned into hope, but it was built on a shadow. I didn't want to ruin it too quickly. I wanted to be careful, gentle, the way you handle something fragile. So for a while, I listened. I nodded when she told me about the messages he sent, the songs he shared, the late-night calls that never connected because of bad Wi-Fi. She said his voice notes made her heart calm. Every detail sounded rehearsed, like she was repeating lines she needed to believe. 2 weeks after the transfer, I stopped by unannounced. Her living room looked different. Candles, a vase of red roses, new curtains. She said David loved soft colors. When I asked if they'd video chatted yet, she shook her head. The connection is tricky in Dubai. He's working hard. It's a busy project. I forced a smile. Maybe he can send a short video, just saying hi. She frowned. He doesn't like cameras. Bad memories from his wife's illness. It didn't make sense, but grief rarely does. So I let it go. That night, when I came home, I looked him up. David Architect Dubai. Nothing. No LinkedIn, no firm name, no matching face anywhere. When I reverse searched his photo, a dozen results appeared. Same face, different names. A European business consultant, a Canadian engineer, a motivational speaker, all identical pictures. I stared at the screen until my stomach twisted. I didn't want to humiliate my mother with proof, but I had to protect her. So I printed a few screenshots, the same image used on a dating site under another name, and took them to her the next morning. She was in the kitchen, still in her robe, humming softly while checking her phone. When I showed her the papers, her hands trembled. "Mom," I said gently, "his pictures are fake. Look, they're from other accounts." Her expression changed in slow motion. Shock, then anger. "Emily, you think everyone's lying. You've always been skeptical. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just want you to be careful." She shook her head. "You don't understand what it's like to lose someone and have nobody to talk to." Her voice cracked. I backed off. I didn't want to push her further away. But that night, she called me, her tone shaky and defensive. "You shouldn't dig into people's lives, Emily. David's upset. He says his privacy's being invaded." My jaw clenched. He knew I existed, and he wanted me gone. A few days later, she canceled our weekend lunch, said she was busy helping David sort his banking issue. She spoke quickly, like she didn't want to be interrupted. The next morning she texted, "He finally got the transfer sorted. Things are fine now. I told you not to worry. But the thing about worry, once it starts, it doesn't stop." One evening, I scrolled through her Facebook just to check. Every new post was about love, second chances, trusting again, heart emojis, inspirational quotes, hashtags about destiny. She'd changed her profile picture to a selfie with the caption, "Happiness can find you anywhere." David had commented, "You are my forever." Strangers liked it. Old family friends congratulated her. It all looked so normal. That's what scared me the most. I tried to talk to her again, carefully this time. We met at a diner halfway between my place and hers. She arrived glowing, wearing a necklace I'd never seen before, a silver heart pendant. She said it was from David. He sent it by courier, she said proudly. Took weeks to arrive. I asked for the receipt, just curious where it came from. She laughed. "You're such a detective. Can't you just let me be happy?" I wanted to. I really did. But something inside me whispered, "This isn't happiness. It's hypnosis." That night, I decided to call my Aunt Linda. Mom's sister had always been her voice of reason. If anyone could get through to her, it was Linda. When I explained the situation, Linda went silent. For a few seconds, all I heard was her breathing. Then she said softly, "You know, that's strange. I've been talking to someone online too. Met him in a support group for widows. He's from Canada. His name's Michael." My pulse quickened. I asked her to send me his photo. A minute later, the picture popped up on my screen. The same man, same smile, same background, different name. My heart stopped. I called Mom immediately. "Do you have a photo of David?" "Of course," she said. "Send it to me." When it came through, I placed it next to Linda's. Identical. One named David, one named Michael. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I called Linda back, told her everything. She gasped, then whispered, "You think it's the same person?" "I don't think. I know." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind looping through every message, every smile Mom had shared. It wasn't just a scam. It was a system, a pattern. Someone somewhere was playing both sisters at once. The next morning, I printed both message threads side by side. It looked like mirror writing. The same pet names, the same compliments, even the same, "Good morning, my angel," sent at exactly the same hour. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or cry. I went back to Mom's house the next evening. When she opened the door, I could see she'd been crying. Her mascara was smudged, her hair undone. I handed her the papers. She looked at them for a long time, lips trembling. Then she whispered, "This doesn't mean anything. People can look alike." "Mom, it's him. He's using different names. He's scamming both of you." She stared past me as if I wasn't even there. Then quietly, "You just can't stand to see me happy, can you?" Her words hit like stones. I wanted to shout, but I didn't. Instead, I said softly, "Then let me prove it." That night, after she went to bed, I sat in my car outside her house, phone in hand, heart pounding. If she wouldn't protect herself, I would. I created a fake Facebook account. A woman in her 50s, widowed, a few harmless photos. Within hours, the notifications started coming in. Friend requests. Messages. Most were spam, but one stood out. Hi, beautiful. I saw kindness in your eyes. It was him. Different name again. Daniel. I stared at the message, numb. He had no idea who I was, and I had no idea just how far I was about to go to stop him. I didn't sleep much after that message from the fake profile. All night, my mind ran in circles. What kind of person spends their life pretending to love widows? By sunrise, I had decided, if Mom wouldn't protect herself, I would. I started with the simple things. Reverse image search, forum posts, scam alert pages. Within minutes, I found the same face, different names, different countries, always working overseas. Every story ended the same way. Money gone, heartbroken. Reading them felt like déjà vu. I made coffee, stared at the laptop glow, and whispered, "It's him." Then I called Mom. She answered cheerful, almost singing. "Good morning, sweetheart. David's flying to London for meetings, can you believe it?" I didn't mention what I'd found. Instead, I asked if she'd heard his voice lately. She said yes, short calls, poor reception. "He's so busy, he's trying so hard to get home." I could hear the longing in her voice. That longing was the hook he pulled with. When I hung up, guilt washed over me. I sounded like an interrogator. But love doesn't mean silence. So I kept digging. 2 days later, a friend from work told me about an FBI database that lists open complaint patterns. I typed the details: occupation, architect, location, Dubai, language, widowed, romantic tone. Dozens of entries appeared, nearly identical scripts. They even used the same phrase, "My heart found peace in you." I felt sick. It wasn't one man. It was a ring, recycling stolen photos and words. But how could I make Mom see that? She didn't need data. She needed a reason to believe me. So I drove to her house with printed pages again, determined but careful. She was watering her plants, humming. When she saw the folder in my hands, her shoulders stiffened. "Mom," I said gently, "please just look at this." She sighed, setting the watering can down. I showed her the screenshots, 5 different profiles using David's picture. She barely glanced at them. "You can fake anything on the internet, Emily," she said. "Exactly," I replied. "That's the point." Her eyes filled with tears, but not because she believed me. "They warned me," she whispered. "They said family never supports online love. I thought you'd be different." That line broke something inside me. She wasn't angry at him. She was angry at me for threatening her dream. I left the folder on her kitchen table and drove home in silence. Halfway there, she called. Her voice was shaking. "David says he understands why you're doing this. He forgives you." The words made my skin crawl. He forgives me? That night, I couldn't eat. I kept imagining him somewhere behind a screen, laughing. The next morning, another text came from Mom. "Everything's fine now. Please stop worrying." Attached was a photo, roses, a breakfast tray, and a note that said, "Forever yours, D." I knew she hadn't taken that picture. The light, the wallpaper, even the plates looked staged. He'd stolen it from somewhere. But she believed it. A week later, Aunt Linda called. Her voice trembled. "Emily, I think you're right. Michael asked me for money today." I felt both relieved and terrified. "Please don't send it," I said. She paused. "I won't. Not after seeing what you showed me." Relief flooded through me. At least Linda was safe. That night, I sat with my laptop, rereading every message from the fake Daniel account, the one I'd created. He used the same pattern of words, the same timing. At exactly 9 a.m., the good morning text. At 10 p.m., "Sleep well, my angel." The schedule ran like machinery. He was juggling victims by the clock. I saved everything. Screenshots, timestamps, bank references, and filled out an online complaint. It felt small, almost pointless, but I had to do something. 2 days later, Mom called crying. "I can't find him, Em. His account disappeared. He said he was flying, but now it's gone." I tried to comfort her. "Maybe the app glitched," she said quickly, desperate. I told her, "Or maybe he blocked you." She hung up. Hours passed before she called again, whispering, "He texted from another number. He said hackers took his page." I closed my eyes. The script continued exactly like the reports I'd read. Lose the old account, start a new one, claim to be a victim too. It bought him sympathy, and more time. That weekend I stopped by again. She looked tired, older. I asked if she'd eaten. She hadn't. The house was quiet, except for the ticking of Dad's old clock. Then she said, "I think you were right, Emily." Relief flooded me for a second, until she continued, "I think someone's trying to sabotage us. David says a jealous coworker keeps reporting him." Back to square one. He'd turned her doubt into devotion. I needed proof so strong it couldn't be twisted. So I joined another widows group under my fake account. Within a day, I spotted the same pattern. Romantic quotes. Compliments about eyes filled with kindness. And there he was again. Same grammar, same rhythm. Using yet another name, Stephen. He sent me a photo, him holding a coffee cup. The background window reflection showed palm trees, but reversed, mirrored. He'd cropped someone else's photo. The illusion was perfect until you looked closely. I saved it. For 10 days, I played along, documenting everything. The messages grew faster, sweeter, more personal. And then came the line I'd been waiting for. "My dear, I'm having issues with my company account again." I'd never ask if it wasn't urgent. I stared at the words. There it was, the hook. The moment he'd turned love into theft. I printed the entire chat history and drove back to Mom's. When I arrived, she was sitting on the porch staring into nothing. I sat beside her and handed her the papers. She didn't take them at first. Finally, she whispered, "What is it this time?" "It's him, Mom, under another name." He messaged me. "Look." She flipped through the pages, slower and slower, until her eyes stopped on the last line. "My dear, I'm having issues with my company account." Her hands began to tremble. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then softly, "He told me I was different." I said, "He tells everyone that." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she kept reading, like she needed to see every lie to drain it out of her. Finally, she whispered, "What happens now?" I didn't have an answer yet, but I promised her, "We're going to end this, Mom, for good." For a while, we just sat there, the papers between us fluttering in the evening breeze. The world felt smaller. Even the birds had gone quiet. Mom wiped her face with the sleeve of her cardigan and whispered, "I can't believe I fell for this." I stayed with her that night. We didn't talk much. I made tea, turned on the television to fill the silence, and sat beside her on the couch. Around midnight, she finally spoke. What if he really does care, even just a little? The question broke my heart. Because I knew what it meant. She was still searching for a reason to believe. The next morning, she seemed calmer, more resigned. Over breakfast, she said quietly, "I need to talk to him one more time. Just to hear him explain." I wanted to say no, to shut it down completely, but I also knew that forcing her would only push her away. "If you do," I said carefully, "let me be here with you." She agreed. That afternoon, she sent him a message to the new number he'd given her. Within minutes, he replied. His tone was gentle, apologetic. He said his account had been hacked, that people were trying to ruin his reputation, that he'd been so worried about her. Every word was calculated to sound sincere. Then he asked if they could talk on the phone. Mom looked at me uncertain. I nodded. When the call connected, she put it on speaker. His voice was warm, familiar, the same voice from the recording she'd played me weeks ago. "Carol," he said softly. "I've missed you so much." She started crying. He let her cry, whispering comfort, telling her everything would be okay. Then he said, "I know your daughter doesn't trust me. I understand, but I promise you I'm real." I leaned forward. "Then prove it. Video call her. Right now." Silence stretched across the line. Then carefully, "My camera's broken, but I can send a video." "We've seen your videos," I said. "We need a live call." Another pause. "The internet here is..." "Then go somewhere with better internet," I interrupted. His tone shifted, just slightly. Still polite, but colder. "Carol, I don't think your daughter wants us to be happy." Mom looked at me, torn. I held her gaze. Finally, she whispered into the phone, "David. Emily's right. If you love me, show me your face. Live video call." Not a recording. The line went quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I have to go. Work emergency. I'll call you later." And he hung up. Mom stared at the phone, her face blank. "He's not going to call back, is he?" she whispered. I shook my head. She set the phone down and covered her face with her hands. For the first time since this began, she wasn't making excuses. She was just grieving. 3 days passed with no word from him. Mom moved through the house like a ghost, mechanically making coffee, folding laundry, staring out windows. I stayed close, checking in every few hours. Then, on Thursday morning, everything changed. She called me, voice shaking, not with sadness, but panic. "Emily, I need you to come over. Now." When I arrived, she was standing in the kitchen staring at her laptop. "He sent an email," she said. "From a different address." I looked at the screen. The message was short. "Carol, I'm sorry. I need help. My project payment is frozen and I can't get home. If you ever loved me, please. Just this once. $5,000, I'll pay you back everything. The $1,200 too. Please." My stomach dropped. He'd mentioned the exact amount she'd sent before. He was using her own history against her. "I don't have $5,000, she whispered. "I'd have to take it from savings. From the account your father left me." I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw clarity in her eyes. "You're not going to send it," I said. She shook her head slowly. "No, I'm not." Relief flooded through me. But then she added, "I want to meet him." "What?" "If he's real, he'll meet me. If he's not..." Her voice trailed off. "Then I'll know for sure." I wanted to argue, to tell her it was dangerous. But I also understood. She needed to see the empty space where he'd stood, so I helped her craft a reply. "I'll give you the money, but only in person. I'll meet you in Houston this weekend." We waited. 10 minutes passed, 20, then finally a response. "I can't travel right now. Just wire it. I promise I'll come see you after." Mom read it twice, then closed the laptop. "There it is," she said quietly. The truth. She didn't cry. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. After a long silence, she said, "I almost gave him my whole life, didn't I?" I didn't answer. We both already knew. That night, she asked me to help her delete everything. Every message, every photo, every trace of him. We worked in silence, clicking through months of conversations. When we reached the last one, she paused. "Can I keep just one?" she asked. "The first message he sent me. Just so I remember." I asked why. "So I never forget what loneliness can make you believe," she said. I nodded. She saved it to a folder labeled Lessons. Then we deleted the rest. As we finished, I noticed a new email notification. She opened it before I could stop her. The subject line read, "Final chance." Inside was a single sentence. "You're making a mistake, Carol. We could have been happy." Her hands trembled as she clicked delete. "No," she whispered. "We couldn't have." But later that night, after I left, she called me again. Her voice was small. "Emily, what if I'd sent that money? What would have happened?" I told her the truth. He would have asked for more and more, until there was nothing left. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I never could," I replied. The next morning, I contacted a volunteer organization that tracked romance scams. A woman named Jenna responded within hours. She'd lost over $30,000 to a similar ring. She said she'd been working with investigators and offered to help us report everything. When I told Mom, she hesitated. "Will people find out?" she asked. "Only if you want them to," I said. She nodded slowly. "Then let's do it. Maybe it'll help someone else." We spent the afternoon compiling evidence, screenshots, transaction receipts, email headers. Jenna walked us through every step, patient and kind. When we finished, Mom looked exhausted but lighter somehow. "I feel like I can breathe again," she said. That weekend we drove to the lake, just the two of us. We didn't talk about him. We talked about Dad, about my childhood, about the future. For the first time in months, Mom laughed, really laughed, at an old story I'd told a dozen times. As the sun set over the water, she turned to me and said, "I think I'm going to be okay." I believed her, but that night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, a single message. "You shouldn't have interfered." I stared at it, heart pounding. Then I blocked the number and deleted the message. Whoever sent it didn't matter anymore. They had no power here. Still, I didn't tell Mom. She didn't need to know. She was finally free. The next few weeks felt fragile, like walking on ice that could crack at any moment. Mom seemed better. She was eating again, sleeping through the night, but there was a hollowness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She started going to church more often. She'd always gone on Sundays, but now she attended Bible study on Wednesdays too, volunteering for community meals on Thursdays. I asked if she was okay, and she said, "I just need to be around people." Real people. I understood. One afternoon, I stopped by and found her sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook. "What's that?" I asked. She looked up, almost embarrassed. "I'm writing down everything that happened, all the red flags I missed, so I never forget." I sat beside her and read what she'd written. Never wanted to video chat, always had an excuse. Perfect words. Perfect timing. Needed money right when I was most vulnerable. At the bottom of the page, she'd written in capital letters, "If it feels too good to be true." "It is, I was so stupid," she whispered. "You weren't stupid," I said firmly. "You were lonely. And he was good at what he did." She nodded, but didn't look convinced. A few days later, Jenna called with an update. The FBI had identified a pattern linking dozens of victims across multiple states, all widows, all contacted through Facebook grief groups, all sent money to accounts that bounced through 3 different countries before disappearing. "They're close to making arrests," Jenna said. "Your mom's testimony could help." When I told Mom, she went pale. "I'd have to tell people what happened?" "Only investigators," I said. "And only if you're comfortable." She thought about it for a long time. Finally, she said, "If it helps catch them, yes, I'll do it." 2 weeks later, an FBI agent came to the house. He was kind, professional, and patient. He asked Mom to walk through everything, when they met, what he said, how much she sent. She answered every question, her voice steady but quiet. When he asked about the emotional impact, she paused. "He made me feel like I mattered," she said softly. "Like I wasn't just a widow. Like I was still a person worth loving." The agent nodded. "That's what they do. They find the wound and press on it." After he left, Mom sat on the couch for a long time, staring at her hands. "Do you think they'll catch him?" she asked. "I hope so," I said. She nodded. "Me too." That night she seemed restless. She kept checking her phone, then setting it down, then checking again. Finally I asked, "Are you waiting for him to message you?" She looked at me startled. "No," she said quickly. Then quieter, "Maybe, I don't know." Part of me wants to know if he ever thinks about me. If I was just another name on a list, or if any of it meant something. It didn't, I said gently. "And that's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on him." She nodded, but I could see she didn't fully believe it yet. The following week, something shifted. Mom started seeming angry. Not at me, but at herself, at him, at the whole situation. She'd snap at small things, slam cabinet doors, mutter under her breath. One evening, she threw his printed photo across the room. "I hate that I still have his face in my head," she said. "That's normal," I told her. "It takes time." "How much time?" she asked, voice breaking. I didn't have an answer. Around this time, Linda started calling more often. She and Mom would talk for hours, comparing notes, sharing their feelings. Linda had narrowly escaped sending money, but the emotional damage was still there. They both felt foolish, ashamed, angry. But talking to each other seemed to help. One night, Mom told me they were thinking of starting a local support group. "For people who've been scammed," she explained, "so they don't have to feel alone." I thought it was a wonderful idea. But just as things seemed to be stabilizing, another crack appeared. Mom got a friend request on Facebook from someone named David Mitchell. The profile picture was different, but the bio was eerily familiar. Architect, widower, working overseas. She showed it to me immediately, hands shaking. "Is it him?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said. "But don't accept it. Don't engage at all." She deleted the request. But over the next few days, more appeared. Different names, similar profiles. Some sent messages. "You look familiar. Have we met?" It felt like he was circling back, testing to see if she'd bite again. Mom changed her privacy settings, blocked the accounts, even considered deleting Facebook entirely. "He's not going to leave me alone, is he?" she said. "We'll make sure he does," I promised. I reported every profile to Facebook and forwarded the information to the FBI agent. He said it was common. Scammers often revisited old victims, hoping enough time had passed that they'd forgotten. They count on people's loneliness being stronger than their memory, he said. That sentence haunted me. One evening, I found Mom sitting in Dad's old armchair, the one she'd refused to sit in since he died. She was holding his reading glasses, turning them over in her hands. I thought David would help me move on from your father, she said quietly, but all he did was make me miss Dad more. I sat on the floor beside her. Dad would have seen through him in a second, she continued. He always had good instincts about people. I used to have them too. I don't know what happened. Grief happened, I said. It changes everything. Even the things you think you know about yourself. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I just want to feel normal again, she whispered. You will, I promised. It just takes time. But as the weeks passed, I started to worry. Mom was pulling away, not from me, but from life. She stopped going to church events, stopped answering calls from friends. She spent most days at home, staring at the television or sitting in silence. When I asked what was wrong, she said, I don't know how to trust anymore. Every time someone's nice to me, I wonder what they want. It broke my heart because I understood. He hadn't just stolen her money. He'd stolen her ability to believe in kindness. One particularly hard day, she called me crying. I saw a man at the grocery store who looked like him, like the picture. I know it wasn't really him, but I panicked. I left my cart and drove home. She sounded so small, so defeated. I went over immediately and just held her while she cried. I feel like I'm never going to be okay again, she sobbed. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that everything would be fine. But the truth was, I didn't know. Recovery isn't a straight line. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. That night, after she fell asleep on the couch, I sat in her kitchen and cried too. Not just for her, but for every person who'd been hurt this way. For every widow and widower who'd been hunted in their grief. For every family watching someone they love slip into a fantasy. The next morning, Jenna called with news. They arrested 2 men in Houston, she said. Money mules. They were receiving transfers and forwarding them overseas. Will they testify? I asked. One of them is cooperating. He gave up names, account numbers, everything. When I told Mom, she looked up from her coffee. Does that mean it's over? For you, yes, I said. But they're still out there, just with different names now. She nodded slowly. Then she said something that surprised me. I want to do the support group. With Linda. I want to help other people see the signs before it's too late. Are you sure? I asked. No, she admitted. But I think I need to. I need something good to come from this. And for the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of the woman she used to be. Strong, purposeful, determined. She wasn't healed yet. But she was fighting. And that was enough for now. 2 months after the FBI agent's visit, Mom seemed to be rebuilding herself piece by piece. She and Linda had started their support group. Just a small gathering at the community center every Thursday evening. At first, only 3 people showed up. But by the second month, there were 12. Mom would come home from those meetings exhausted but lighter somehow. Everyone has the same story, she told me once. Different details, same pattern. It helps to know I'm not alone. I was proud of her. She'd taken her pain and turned it into purpose. But just when things seemed to be stabilizing, Jenna called with unexpected news. They found the source, she said, voice tight with excitement. The actual operation. It's not just 2 guys in Houston, it's a whole network. Call centers in Nigeria and Ghana, with coordinators in the U.S. handling payments. How many victims? I asked. Hundreds? Maybe thousands. They've been running this for years. My stomach turned. And my mom was just one of them. Exactly, Jenna said. But here's the thing, they tracked the photos. The man in those pictures? He's real. His name is Robert Chen. He's a retired high school teacher in Ohio. Someone stole his photos years ago, and they've been circulating ever since. I felt dizzy. So the man my mother fell in love with doesn't exist, Jenna finished. The face belongs to an innocent person who has no idea his image has been used to hurt people. When I told Mom, she went very still. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, so even his face was a lie. I nodded. She looked down at her hands. I loved someone who never existed. Not just a fake person, a composite. A ghost? I'm sorry, Mom. She shook her head. Don't be. At least now I know. There's nothing left to wonder about. But I could see it in her eyes. The final thread of hope had been cut. Even the small possibility that maybe, somewhere, there'd been a real person behind those words was gone. That night, she deleted the last saved message, the one she'd kept in the lessons folder. I don't need it anymore, she said. I'll never forget what happened. The next day, she did something that surprised me. She asked if she could meet Robert Chen, the real man from the photos. Why? I asked. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe to see that he's real. Maybe to apologize even though I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe just to close the loop. I contacted Jenna, who reached out to Mr. Chen. To our surprise, he agreed. I've been contacted by a few victims over the years, he told Jenna. It helps them to see I'm just a normal person. Not the fantasy they were sold. 2 weeks later, we traveled to a small cafe in Ohio. Mom was nervous the entire trip, fidgeting with her seatbelt, checking her reflection. What if I cry? She asked. Then you cry, I said. He'll understand. When we walked into the cafe, I recognized him immediately from the photos, but he looked older, softer, kinder than the stolen images suggested. He stood when he saw us, extending his hand. You must be Carol, he said gently. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, she whispered. You have nothing to apologize for, he said firmly. None of this is your fault. We sat, and for the next hour they talked. He told her about his life, his late wife, his teaching career, his grandchildren. He showed her real photos of himself, different angles, different contexts. This is who I actually am, he said. Not whoever they said I was. Mom listened, wiping her eyes, nodding. When he finished, she said, thank you. I needed to see that you're real. That somewhere in all of this there was truth. He smiled sadly. I wish I could undo what they did to you. To all of you. You already have, Mom said. Just by being here. As we drove home, Mom was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I think I can finally let go now. Of him? I asked. Of the fantasy, she corrected. Of the person I thought he was. Now I know he never existed at all. She stared out the window, watching the landscape blur past. It's strange, she continued. I thought meeting Mr. Chen would make it worse. But it made it better. Because now there's no mystery. No what-ifs. Just reality. I reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, Mom. She smiled faintly. I'm proud of me, too. A week later, the FBI called with final updates. The coordinating ring had been dismantled. 7 arrests across 3 states, dozens of bank accounts frozen. They'd recovered some funds, though most of it was long gone. Mom would get back a portion of her $1,200, but not all. When the agent asked if she wanted to be contacted for potential testimony, she said yes without hesitation. If it helps put them away, I'll do whatever's needed, she said. After the call, she turned to me. You know what's funny? I spent months protecting him, defending him to you, making excuses, believing his lies. And now I'm the one testifying against him. Not against him, I said. Against what he represents, she nodded. Good. Because I want every woman in those grief groups to know. If it sounds too perfect, it probably is. Over the next few months, Mom continued with her support group. She shared her story openly without shame. She told people about the red flags, the manipulation tactics, the slow erosion of doubt. And every week, someone new would show up, scared and ashamed, and Mom would sit with them and say, You're not stupid. You were human. And that's nothing to apologize for. One evening, after a particularly emotional meeting, a woman approached Mom. She was in her 60s, trembling, holding a crumpled tissue. I almost sent him $20,000 yesterday, she whispered. But I came here first. You saved me. Mom hugged her tightly, tears in both their eyes. When we got to the car, Mom broke down. That could have been me, she sobbed. If you hadn't stopped me, that could have been me. But it wasn't, I said firmly. You stopped. You listened. You survived, she nodded, wiping her face. I survived, she repeated quietly, like she was testing the weight of the word. And for the first time since this all began, I truly believed she had. 6 months after the first arrest, the FBI called with news I hadn't expected. They'd tracked the main organizer, a man operating out of Lagos who'd been running romance scams for over a decade. His name was Chukwudi Okafor, and he wasn't just a scammer. He was a businessman, running the operation like a company, hiring employees, training them on scripts, managing multiple clients at once. We need victim testimonies for the international case, the agent said. Your mother's documentation is some of the most thorough we have. What would she need to do? I asked. A video deposition. She'd describe everything. The emotional manipulation, the financial requests, the impact on her life. It'll be used in court. When I told Mom, she went pale. They'll see my face. They'll know it was me. Only the legal team, I assured her. And it could help lock him away for years. She thought about it for a long time. Finally, she said, when? The deposition was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Mom spent days preparing, writing out notes, practicing what she'd say. The night before, she barely slept. When the day came, I drove her to the FBI field office. She was quiet the entire way, staring out the window. What if I freeze? She asked. You won't, I said. You've told this story 100 times now. Not like this, she whispered. The deposition room was small, sterile, just a camera, a chair, and an agent asking questions. I waited outside, pacing the hallway, checking my phone every few minutes. When Mom finally emerged 2 hours later, her eyes were red but clear. How did it go? I asked. She took a shaky breath. I told them everything. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. On the drive home, she was quiet again, but different. Calmer, more settled. Finally, she said, You know what the agent told me at the end? She said I was brave. You are, I said. Mom shook her head. I didn't feel brave when it was happening. I felt stupid and desperate and alone. That's what makes it brave, I replied. Doing it anyway. She smiled faintly, then rested her head against the window. A month later, we got word that Okafor had been arrested in Lagos. The case would take years to fully prosecute, but the operation had been shut down. Hundreds of fake profiles deleted. Dozens of bank accounts frozen. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was something. Mom cried when she heard the news. Not from sadness, but relief. It's really over, she whispered. It's really over, I confirmed. That weekend, Mom did something she hadn't done since Dad died. She rearranged the living room. She moved Dad's chair to a different spot, took down some of the old photos, and put up new ones. Pictures of her and Linda at the support group. Pictures of us at the lake. Pictures of her smiling. I'm not erasing him, she explained when she saw me watching. I'm just making room for what comes next. I hugged her tightly. I think that's perfect. The support group continued to grow. By the end of the year, they had over 30 regular members and had partnered with local law enforcement to offer fraud prevention workshops. Mom became a spokesperson, doing interviews with local news, speaking at community centers, even writing an article for a regional magazine about romance scams. She was no longer the woman who'd been hunted. She was the woman who'd survived and fought back. One evening, after a particularly well-attended workshop, Mom and I sat on her back porch watching the sunset. "Do you ever think about him?" I asked carefully. She nodded. "Sometimes. Not the fake David, the real people behind it. The ones sitting in those call centers, reading scripts, pretending to love strangers. I wonder if they know what they're doing. If they care, does it matter?" I asked. She thought about it. "Maybe not. But I hope one day someone tells them the truth, that love isn't something you can fake." "Not really. You can fake the words, but not the weight of it." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then she said, "You know what I've learned? Loneliness makes you vulnerable, but it doesn't make you weak. I was lonely and I made a mistake. But I'm still here, and I'm stronger than I was before." I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and saw someone different than the grieving widow I'd watched fade away months ago. She was still healing, still rebuilding, but she was whole again. "I'm proud of you, Mom," I said. She smiled, eyes glistening. "I'm proud of me too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I thought about everything we'd been through. The fear, the anger, the heartbreak, the slow climb back to solid ground. It hadn't been easy, but we'd made it. And sitting there beside her, I realized that sometimes the greatest act of love isn't protecting someone from pain. It's walking beside them through it. A year after it all began, Mom's house felt different. The curtains were open, sunlight streaming in. The air was lighter. She'd started gardening again, Dad's old hobby, and the back porch was filled with pots of tomatoes and herbs. She hummed while she watered them, her phone forgotten on the kitchen counter. I visited on a Sunday afternoon, and she greeted me with a hug and fresh lemonade. "How's the group?" I asked. "Growing," she said with a smile. "We had 2 new people this week. Both widows, both contacted by men claiming to be overseas contractors. Same story, different names." She shook her head, but there was no bitterness in her voice anymore, just determination. "We're getting better at catching them early," she continued, "teaching people the warning signs before they send money." We sat on the porch, and I noticed she'd hung new wind chimes, different from Dad's, but beautiful in their own way. "I like those," I said. She nodded. "Me too." It felt like time for something new. We talked about ordinary things, her garden, my work, plans for the holidays. It felt normal, comfortable. The kind of conversation we used to have before everything fell apart. At one point, she glanced at her phone, then set it back down without checking it. I smiled. "Making progress." She laughed. "I still check it sometimes. Old habits. But I'm not waiting for anyone anymore. Just living." Later, as the sun began to set, she said something that caught me off guard. "I forgave him, you know." I looked at her surprised. "David?" "Not David," she corrected. "The person behind the name. Whoever he really was, I forgave him." "Why?" I asked. She thought about it, tracing the rim of her glass with one finger. "Because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. He doesn't care about me. He probably doesn't even remember me. So why should I carry that weight?" She looked at me, eyes clear and calm. "I'm not saying what he did was okay. It wasn't. But I'm choosing to let go of it so I can move forward. Does that make sense?" I nodded, throat tight with emotion. "It makes perfect sense," she smiled softly. "Your father would have been proud of us, you know, of how we handled this. Together." "Yeah," I whispered. "He would have." A few weeks later, Mom called me with exciting news. Her story had been picked up by a national organization fighting elder fraud. They wanted her to speak at a conference in Washington, D.C., to share her experience with lawmakers and advocates. "Will you come with me?" she asked. "Of course," I said. The conference was overwhelming. Hundreds of people, all working to protect vulnerable populations from scams. When it was Mom's turn to speak, I sat in the front row, heart pounding. She walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and took a deep breath. Then she began. "My name is Carol, and I fell in love with a ghost." For the next 20 minutes, she told her story. Raw, honest, unflinching. She talked about the grief that made her vulnerable, the loneliness that made her desperate, the manipulation that made her believe. She talked about the shame she felt, the money she lost, and the daughter who refused to give up on her. When she finished, the room was silent. Then slowly people began to stand. One by one, they rose in a standing ovation. I watched my mother, this woman who'd been broken and rebuilt herself, stand there, tears streaming down her face, and I'd never been more proud. After the conference, we walked through the city. Mom stopped at a street vendor and bought flowers, bright yellow sunflowers. "For Dad," she said. "And for me, a reminder that there's still beauty after the storm." We found a quiet park and sat on a bench. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For saving me. For not letting me disappear into that fantasy. For loving me even when I pushed you away." I took her hand. "You're my mom. I'll always fight for you." She squeezed my fingers. "I know." And that's what saved me. We sat there for a long time, watching people pass by. Couples, families, people alone. "Do you think you'll ever date again?" I asked carefully. She laughed. "Maybe, someday, but not online. And not for a while. Right now, I'm learning to be happy on my own. And that's enough." She looked at me, eyes bright. "You know what I've realized? I don't need someone to complete me. I was never incomplete. I was just lonely. And there's a difference. As we walked back to the hotel, Mom looped her arm through mine. I think the worst is finally behind us, she said. I think so too, I agreed. That night before bed, she sent me a text. Thank you for never giving up. I love you more than words can say. I replied, I love you too, Mom. Always. The next morning, we flew home. As the plane descended, I looked at my mother, really looked at her. She was reading a book, a small smile on her lips, completely present in the moment, not waiting for a message, not checking her phone, just living, and I realized that's what healing looks like. Not perfect, not complete, but real. When we landed, Mom turned to me and said, You know what? I'm glad it's over, but I'm also glad it happened. Why? I asked, surprised. Because it taught me something important, she said, that I'm stronger than I knew. That love from my family is worth more than words from a stranger. And that even when you lose yourself, you can always find your way back. She smiled, eyes glistening. I lost money. I lost time. I lost dignity for a while. But I found myself again. And that's worth everything. We walked out of the airport together, into the warm Texas sunshine. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, yes, but full of possibility. Mom was healing. I was healing. And together, we were whole. If you've ever watched someone you love fall for the wrong person or almost lose themselves trying to fill a silence, hold them close. Remind them that love isn't found in words typed on a screen. It's found in presence, in patience, in the people who stay. Remind them that loneliness is temporary, but the damage from trusting the wrong person can last far longer. And most importantly, remind them that they're never alone, not really. My mother survived a romance scam, but more than that, she survived the loneliness that made it possible. And now she's using her voice to help others do the same. If this story touched you, remember, you're not alone. There are resources, support groups, and people who understand. Reach out, speak up, break the silence. Because the only thing scammers fear more than the FBI is victims who refuse to stay quiet.